What sound does power make? You've been taught to listen for the roar, the thunderous speech that moves a nation, the sharp crack of the gavel that seals a fate, the confident boom of a voice that leaves no room for doubt. We are trained to look for the grand gestures, the public displays, the declarations carved in stone. But you have felt it, haven't you? A different kind of power. A heavier, denser authority that makes no sound at all. It's the silence from your boss after you've poured your soul into a project. It's the unanswered message from someone you thought was an ally. It's the chilling stillness in a boardroom right before a decision is made that will shatter someone's career. This is the silence that suffocates, the silence that controls. You have been led to believe that silence is an absence, a void, a weakness, an inability to speak. But what if that is the most profound lie you've ever been told? What if the most terrifying power, the kind that truly shapes the world, is the one you can't hear? What if you are being controlled, directed, and outmaneuvered not by what is said, but by what is deliberately, strategically left unspoken? You feel a knot in your stomach because you know it's true. You've been a pawn in a game where you couldn't even see the board. Until now. Tonight, we descend into the shadows with a guide who was unafraid of the dark, a man whose name has become synonymous with cynical power, but who simply dared to write down the truths that others only dared to practice in secret. We are going to uncover how Machiavelli teaches that the silent leader is not an empty vessel, but a master puppeteer. And you're about to see the strings. To understand the weight of silence, you must first understand the man who saw the world not as it should be, but as it brutally is. Niccolò Machiavelli. He wrote not for saints in a monastery, but for princes in a palace of vipers. He knew that in the arena of power, morality is a luxury, and survival is the only virtue. Machiavelli's vision is built on a terrifyingly simple premise. Perception is reality. It doesn't matter if you are kind, just, or merciful. It only matters if you are perceived as such, when it serves you. He wrote, "It is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them." Now, apply this chilling logic to silence. A leader's speech is a statement. It is a fixed point. It can be analyzed, criticized, and used against them. But their silence is a canvas. The dark, empty canvas onto which everyone else projects their own fears, their own hopes, their own anxieties. When a leader remains silent, they surrender nothing. They retain all their options. Their silence creates a vacuum, and human nature, desperate and fearful, rushes to fill it. Subordinates whisper among themselves, "Is he angry? Is he pleased? Are we being fired? Are we being promoted?" The silence forces everyone else to reveal their hands, their loyalties, their weaknesses. It turns an entire organization into a symphony of paranoia, and the silent leader is its sole conductor. Machiavelli understood that power is not a crown you wear. It is an atmosphere you create. He taught that a leader should be like the lion and the fox. The lion to frighten the wolves, and the fox to recognize the traps. The roar of the lion is loud and obvious, but the fox moves in silence. It observes, it waits, it understands the terrain without making a sound. The true master of power does not need to roar. Their presence, their calculated stillness is enough. Their silence is not an absence of strategy. It is the strategy. It's the unspoken threat, the implied promise, the ultimate tool of psychological dominance. This isn't just abstract philosophy. This is the source of a deep and familiar pain. A pain you have likely mistaken for your own inadequacy. Remember that time you worked for weeks on a proposal? You slid it across the table, your heart pounding, awaiting judgment, and what you received was nothing, not a word, just a slow, unreadable nod. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was a torture chamber. It echoed in your mind for days. You replayed every moment, scrutinized every word you said, convinced you had failed. The leader's silence made you your own inquisitor. It didn't need to punish you. It made you punish yourself. Think of the leader who uses the power of the group to isolate you. They don't need to attack you publicly. They simply stop inviting you to the informal meeting. They go silent when you enter the break room. They forget to include you on an important email chain. There are no declarations of war, no overt acts of aggression. There is only a creeping, deafening silence that tells you one thing. You are no longer one of us. This is the silent execution of your social and political capital. It's a pain that leaves no visible scars, a wound you can't even explain to others without sounding paranoid. He just didn't say anything. How can that hurt so much? This pain comes from the deep human need for certainty and belonging. We are social creatures who navigate our world through feedback. We need to know where we stand. The Machiavellian leader understands this fundamental vulnerability. They weaponize your need for validation by withholding it. Their silence exploits your fear of the unknown. It makes you insecure, anxious, and desperate for any sign of approval. And a desperate person is a compliant person. A desperate person is easy to control. The root of your pain isn't your failure. It is the masterful, deliberate, and silent application of psychological pressure designed to unmoor you from your own sense of worth. Why do we fall for this, time and time again? Because we are bound by a pervasive, comforting illusion. A lie whispered to us since childhood, reinforced in self-help books and corporate retreats, the myth of the transparent, authentic leader. We are sold a fantasy, the fantasy of the leader as an open book, the one who shares everything, who is vulnerable, whose door is always open. We are told to value communication, dialogue, and feedback. Society tells you that silence is a failure of leadership, a sign of weakness or indecision. This is the illusion that keeps you a willing prisoner. Because you believe this, you interpret a leader's silence through a lens of your own making. You think they must be too busy, or maybe they're just not a good communicator. You make excuses for them. You assume incompetence before you would ever suspect competence. You assume a lack of skill before you would ever suspect a strategy. This is what they want you to think. The system of power does not want you to understand that silence can be a meticulously crafted tool. It wants you to believe that power is always loud, because the loud threats are easy to spot. The tyrant who screams is obvious, but the one who quietly observes, who gathers information, who allows you to talk yourself into a trap, that leader is invisible. Their power is subtle, pervasive, and far more effective. The illusion is that the game is played on the table, in the light. The truth is that the real game is played in the shadows, in the pauses between words, in the information that is deliberately withheld. You are trained to watch the magician's right hand, the one making the grand, noisy gesture. You have been conditioned to ignore the left hand, the one silently performing the trick. This illusion, that good leadership is loud and open, is the single greatest tool of the silent manipulator. It keeps you looking in the wrong direction while your fate is being decided. Let's tear down the curtain and face the cold, hard truth that Machiavelli laid bare 5 centuries ago. The world of power is not a collaborative workshop. It is a hunting ground. And in this ground, silence is the ultimate camouflage. Machiavelli's truth is this: human beings are fundamentally fickle, ungrateful, and driven by self-interest. A leader who depends on love will be abandoned the moment it becomes inconvenient. But a leader who commands respect, tinged with a healthy dose of fear, will maintain control. As he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Love requires constant maintenance, words, and reassurance. Fear, however, thrives in silence. Silence creates unpredictability. When a leader is an enigma, no one can anticipate their next move. This forces everyone around them to be constantly on guard, to police their own behavior, to act in a way they think will please the leader. The leader doesn't need to issue 1,000 commands. Their silent presence creates a self-enforcing system of discipline. Their silence is a question mark that hangs over every action, and it is terrifying. Furthermore, Machiavelli saw that speech is a commitment, and commitments are weaknesses. The moment you state a firm position, you have given your enemies a fixed target. But the silent leader has no fixed position. They are fluid, adaptable. They listen. They watch others commit, make mistakes, reveal their ambitions, and expose their flanks. The silent leader waits for the perfect moment to act, armed with all the information others have foolishly given away. This is the brutal reality. Your desire for clarity, for feedback, for a leader's approval. From a Machiavellian perspective, these are not needs to be met. They are vulnerabilities to be exploited. The philosophical truth is that in the calculus of power, your emotional comfort is irrelevant. What is relevant is control, and silence, in its profound and terrible wisdom, is the purest form of control that exists. It costs nothing, risks nothing, and yields everything. And so, the truth settles in, like a shard of ice in the heart. That silence wasn't an oversight. That unanswered email wasn't forgotten. That lack of praise wasn't an accident. It was a message. It was a tool. It was a display of power. And with this realization, a war begins inside you. A violent conflict between the world you thought you knew and the one that has just been revealed. The first casualty is your own innocence. You start replaying conversations, re-examining moments, but this time, you see the strings. You see the silent, calculated moves behind the curtain. Paranoia begins to creep in. Is your colleague's quietness a sign of camaraderie, or are they a rival gathering intelligence? Is your mentor's thoughtful pause a sign of wisdom, or are they measuring you for a betrayal? The world, once a place of simple interactions, becomes a complex chessboard. It is exhausting. A part of you wants to reject this, to call it cynical, dark, and inhuman, to retreat back into the comforting illusion that people are fundamentally good and that communication is king. This is the voice of your old self, fighting for its life, begging you not to look into the abyss. But another part of you, a deeper, quieter part, is strangely empowered. The confusion you felt for years is replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The pain of self-doubt is replaced by the anger of being manipulated, and that anger is fuel. This is the moment of transformation. It's the death of the pawn and the birth of a player. You understand that you have two choices. You can remain a victim of this silent game, forever reacting to the moves of others, forever in a state of anxiety, or you can learn the rules. You can accept the world as Machiavelli described it, not because you want to become a tyrant, but because you refuse to be a slave to one. This internal conflict is the necessary fire. It must burn away your naivete to forge something stronger, something more aware, something that can finally navigate the shadows without fear. This knowledge is not a curse. It is a liberation. Understanding the Machiavellian power of silence does not mean you are doomed to a life of paranoia. It means you have finally been given the map to the maze you've been trapped in. The reconstruction begins with listening, not to words, but to the spaces between them. You must learn to listen to what is not said in a meeting, who goes silent when a certain topic is raised, whose support is verbal, but whose actions are non-existent. Silence, you now understand, is data. It is the purest data there is. Next, you must master your own silence. This is not about being passive, it is about being deliberate. In a negotiation, when you are made an offer, instead of rushing to respond, stay silent. Let the silence hang in the air. Let it become uncomfortable. 9 times out of 10, the other person will rush to fill it, often by sweetening the deal against their own interests. You did not say a word, yet you bent the outcome in your favor. When you are criticized or provoked, your instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to fight back with words. The reconstructed path is silence. Your silence denies your attacker the satisfaction of a reaction. It communicates unshakable confidence. It says, "Your words have no power over me." This is not weakness. It is an impenetrable shield. This philosophy liberates you from the desperate need for external validation. You no longer search for meaning in the silences of others. You create your own meaning, your own certainty. You begin to move with intention. You choose when to speak and for what purpose, and you choose when to remain silent, conserving your energy, protecting your position, and maintaining your power. This is not about becoming cold or cruel. It is about becoming wise. It's the difference between a lamb in the field, startled by every sound, and the fox on the hill, watching, listening, and understanding the entire landscape. You learn that your words are silver, but your deliberate silence is gold. We live in a world screaming for our attention, a relentless cacophony of notifications, opinions, and demands. We have been taught that to be heard, we must be loud, that to have influence, we must have a platform and a megaphone. But what if this is all a grand distraction? What if the loudest voices in the room are merely the most desperate? Machiavelli's dark lesson endures because it speaks to a fundamental law of nature. The most powerful forces are often the most silent ones. Gravity, which holds galaxies together, time, which grinds mountains to dust, and the calculated silence of a leader, which can shape the destiny of thousands without uttering a single word. The power you have been seeking is not outside of you. It is not in the approval of others, nor in the volume of your voice. It is in your ability to master the space within, to find strength in stillness, to wield your silence not as an absence, but as a presence, a shield, a sword, a throne. So I leave you with this question to echo in your own moments of quiet. In your life, in your career, in your own mind, who is truly in control? The one who never stops talking, or the one who has mastered the silence that forces everyone else to reveal who they truly are? The choice, as always, is yours. If this video touched something inside you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Comment below with what made you think the most. We'll see you in the next video.